These days, we think about billionaires quite a lot. Donald Trump, a billionaire, is the president. He's dominated political news for the last decade. One of the biggest stories of the past week was the feud and fallout between Trump and Elon Musk, the world's richest man, Trump's one-time ally and now apparently enemy. Musk had thrown huge sums of money at supporting Donald Trump's re-election campaign last year. In one post, part of a series of posts he made on X attacking Trump this past Thursday, Musk wrote, "Without me, Trump would have lost the election. Dems would control the House and Republicans would be 51 to 49 in the Senate." Even if he's lost Musk, Trump has plenty of billionaires in his corner. In his inauguration back in January, besides Musk, Trump was flanked on stage by tech billionaires, including Amazon's Jeff Bezos, Meta's Mark Zuckerberg, Google's Sundar Pichai, Sergey Brin, Apple's Tim Cook. And in all, Trump appointed, this is hard to believe, 13 billionaires to his administration. That's the largest number in American history by a lot. Evan Osnos, a journalist and staff writer at The New Yorker, has spent much of the last decade chronicling the rise of the uber wealthy in American society and culture. In the introduction of his new book, The Haves and the Have-Yachts, Dispatches on the Ultra-Rich, he writes, quote, "Musk has pulled the ultra-rich into public attention more squarely than at any moment since the New Deal nearly a century ago. At that time, Franklin Roosevelt pointed back to the lessons of the Gilded Age and the Roaring Twenties, a time when, as he put it, privileged princes of these new economic dynasties thirsting for power reached out for control over government itself," end quote. Evan Osnos joins me now. He's the author of the brand new book, The Haves and the Have-Yachts, Dispatches on the Ultra-Rich. We're going to save an entire segment just to talk about the witty title here. Evan, good to see you on the show. Thank you for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Alex.
In a recent piece in The New Yorker, you cite observations from the political scientist Jeffrey Winters. Winters, you write, looking across history, believes that the U.S. has reached peak oligarchic power, a time when the rules of the political process make it possible for wealth to shape the outcomes and agenda. He added, "It's so undeniably visible now that it's no longer possible to say we have rich people and other countries have oligarchs." What has brought us to this moment? Evan, where power is not only prevalent, but visible and seemingly acceptable?
You just captured a moment ago these astonishing tweets that we saw from Elon Musk the other day, which I think historians are going to look back and say these are, in a way, like the Rosetta Stone of how our democracy got so damaged. Here you have the richest man in the world essentially complaining about having bought the presidency and now being unsatisfied with the results. It was like he was complaining about a defective product. I have to say, this is the confluence, the culmination of a generation of choices of influence, frankly, by the wealthiest people in this country to seize control, ultimately, of the powers of government functioning. And it's worth reminding ourselves of one astonishing statistic. In 2004, billionaires contributed about 13 million with an M to that presidential election. Fast forward to 2024, billionaires put in about 200 times as much, 3 billion with a B. That is just over the course of 20 years. You track that forward, if we continued on that trajectory, that doesn't look a whole lot like democracy.
So I want you, because you've been doing this for so long, I want you to tell me from 50,000 feet where we crossed the line. With Citizens United, a lot more money got into politics. We also, compared to 2004, have much richer people. The spread between the average person and the very rich in any country or in the world is just greater than it used to be. What got us to this new place where there's so much more money and there's a direct expectation of a return on that investment, as we saw from Elon Musk this week?
You know, I tend to see that upstream of politics is culture, meaning it's the values that we assign to our society, meaning to the people that we valorize and people we celebrate. Mm-hmm. I'll give you a prime example. I mean, when we were growing up, the average CEO in this country made about, let's say, between 20 and 50 times what a frontline worker made. Today, there's new data out, in fact, just in the last few days, that shows that the median CEO of a public company now makes 350 times what a frontline worker does, the highest in history. I'm reminded of a conversation I had in reporting for The New Yorker and for my last book with a coal miner in West Virginia who had caught wind of what his CEO was making. And he said, have you ever met a man who is really worth 400 or 500 times another man? I've never met one. I think that at its core is what's going on. It is, how do the most powerful people in our society perceive their connection to this broader commons, really, which is what a political society is. It's an idea in which we are all going to play a part. And look, Americans in our core, Ali, we don't expect an equal outcome economically, but we certainly expect that we have some level of equal political rights. And the idea that you now have somebody like Elon Musk who is complaining about not getting what he paid for is a sign of where things went wrong.
Let's examine this for a moment, because oligarchy is not just about the money. It's about the proximity to power and the expectations, right? So the average voter in America casts a ballot, makes a choice, possibly a binary choice between two people, and picks the one they think fits their priorities best. And if it doesn't work out, they can protest, they can call their member of Congress, they can vote them out next time, whatever the case is. But there isn't that direct expectation that I voted for you, so you owe me this. That's not how democracy is normally thought to work. And yet we're moving into a world, Elon Musk laid it all bare. I did this for you, and hence I expect this.
Yeah. And you know what's amazing, Ali, is actually even before Citizens United, which, as we've talked about, is really the central chronological moment when we're tracing the history of this. But what's fascinating is even before that, there was incredibly persuasive scholarship that had been done. There was a landmark study by two scholars named Marty Gillens and Benjamin Page, where they looked at what happens when wealthy voters line up or wealthy donors line up on one issue that is different than where the regular public is. Take, for example, something like deficit spending or cutting Medicaid and Social Security. And what they found is that, in fact, simply because of the power of money in politics, that the value of those wealthy donors was many thousands of times more. In fact, what they described as a very memorable phrase was that the average voter's position was statistically insignificant. It was essentially close to zero. That was before Citizens United. Since then, it's gone, really, the sort of curve has gone vertical. The reason to write a book of this kind is I'm trying to take something that I think we know in our bones, we see it in the abstract, and I want to make it as concrete, as essentially as tangible as steel and suede, really. And that is the purpose of this project.
And the billionaires seem to be helping you with creating a tangible product out of it. Evan, good to see you as always. Thank you for joining us. Let's continue this conversation. Evan Osnos, staff writer at The New Yorker, and importantly, the author of the brand new book, The Haves and the Have-Yachts, Dispatches on the Ultra-Rich.